because the primary is merely days away, and we can just feel throughout the entire state as we're going to find out who's going to go towards the general elections. And one of the most districts, of course, is Congressional District 15, which is always a big one. And we've got some very interesting candidates this year. And one of them happens to be who's been working very, very hard to get candidates in the Democrats and for Eddie Geller.
I think I need to be in charge of Gary's microphone from now on. I'm sorry, Gary. You keep on going in and out, man. And your intros are normally so cool and colorful, but unfortunately, I don't think we can. Were you getting that?
I understood a little bit of what Gary was saying, but it was cutting in and out, so you know how that goes.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry, Gary, but this is Better Know Your Candidate. I'm sorry. It's typically Gary. Like you're the man with the intro, man. I love the intros that you do.
Well, you know something. I could speak every other word. How about
that? Choose your words carefully.
So Eddie, hi. How you doing? Welcome.
I'm doing really well. Thank y'all for having me.
So Eddie, you're particularly. I'm expecting this to be like a funny. I don't want to put any like.
Oh, that's a lot of pressure
on it, yeah. But I'm expecting this to be like a funny rendition of Better Know Your Candidate.
Well, I try and bring a sense of humor to my campaign, but it's it's not jokes first. It's the issues first, and then maybe there's some bits woven into it.
There's a lot of important things that you're trying to do with this campaign.
Absolutely.
And yes, you are a stand-up comedian and have been a part of the comedy world for some time now. But you're trying to get into Congress, right? Correct?
Yeah, I would say, my comedy career kind of, that was kind of 2006 to 2012 was kind of like the main time in my comedy career. And so since then, I worked in the activism world. I worked at MoveOn.org and the Democratic National Committee and so on and so forth, which is all just to say comedy is part of who I am and is part of my background. But I've been doing the activism work. I've been doing the electoral work for a while now.
And this is really a good time to bring up your campaign video.
Please.
Sometimes you feel no one is listening up in Washington. You're fighting to thrive or just to survive, but there's too much corruption. You ask yourself, where's the justice? Where is our fair share? What we need is a fix, a congressman who cares. Eddie Geller's here to run for a Florida that's fair. Here's someone who gives a damn. What a breath of fresh air. It's time to take a stand. Try something new. Eddie Geller for Congress. A guy who's gonna fight for you. He's chipping a buck or two.
Hi, I'm Eddie Geller and I'm running for Congress here in Florida. We need more representatives in Washington who will fight the good fight on issues people actually care about and make a difference in their lives. Good jobs, universal health care, fighting the climate crisis, defending our democracy, and stopping corruption. Come join me at eddiegeller.com and we can win this fight together. And if that means I need to write another 100 jingles, so help me, I will.
Eddie Geller for Congress, a guy who's gonna fight for you. He's chipping a buck or two.
And that's why I feel this is going to be a funny podcast and a funny rendition of Better Know Your Candidate, because you're a funny dude. And like we were saying this, you guys couldn't hear us when the video was playing, but like it honestly like his campaign for Congress is a lot like what we're trying to do with this show, where we're there's some serious issues that we're trying to talk about, and we're trying to bring, talk about it in such a way that's, at least entertaining for people. We might not be as funny as Eddie here.
Oh, stop.
So your campaign, what is so important that Eddie needs to be a congressman?
Well, I jumped into this race after January 6th. I mean, there was a goddamn coup on our Capitol.
Yeah.
And I think good people, as cheesy as it is, good people got to run for office. So, I grew up here in Florida, grew up in Clearwater, went to school at the University of Florida, and had just been watching my home state from afar, and like I talked about, work in the activism world, and then sort of felt like, hey, if I have it in me to do this, now is the time. I mean, people are, like I said, storming the Capitol, and if we don't stand up for democracy and other things like universal health care and civil rights, like, who's going to step up? So that's why I decided to get in.
Very, very, very cool. All right. Gary, you got anything? I know you're dying to say something.
Well, love the production values in that particular.
Thank you.
And you reminded me why I stopped watching broadcast television in the 1990s.
That part where you're saying that you care about the environment and you're just like chugging the water is like, that's a great thing.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm sorry because Gary keeps getting cut off with every other word. No, but it was funny we were just filming, and I just I was like, had the camera that wasn't written. I was like, just film me drinking a glass of water really fast. I bet it's gonna be silly to watch. And so it was like, that might be my favorite.
All right,
scene.
so you mentioned civil rights, you mentioned universal health care. These are like the most important issues in your campaign?
I will say, protecting democracy, of course. We need an updated Voting Rights Act. We need to make sure people have access to the ballot, especially here in Florida. I mean, the attacks on voting rights are just so unrelenting coming from Tallahassee. And also the climate crisis. Thank goodness we saw some movement from DC. I mean, this Inflation Reduction Act is the biggest investment in climate change we've seen, and sorry, none of this is funny, but and enshrining the right to choose into law, or some of the other ones that come to my mind. But if folks want to go to eddiegeller.com, there's a link to my platform. You can see the other things I stand for.
Okay, so this is a marijuana show.
Yes.
Right. So I gotta ask you smoke weed?
I do not smoke weed.
Don't smoke weed.
All right.
You
so
seem like you'd be like a great person.
Right.
To smoke weed
I
with.
seem like I should be the person to smoke weed with. I'll tell you about the first time I got high, which was I was dating a woman. This was, I think, back in maybe 2007. I was dating someone back. I was living in Los Angeles. She was still going to school at the University of Florida. I never smoked, and I came back to visit her, and she had a gravity bong, and I had no idea what that was. Like I said, I never smoked, and then I did a couple hits off of it, and I was so high, and I was like, oh my God, I'm never gonna be normal again. Like I had, like, it was my first experience with it, and I was like, oh, my brain is just like messed up for the rest of my life. But here's the thing is, when I get high, I don't know if, I know paranoid is the like sort of cliche thing, but I start having like all those thoughts, like right when you're about to fall asleep, and then you kind of wake up and you're like, that was a really weird thought. That's what I have. And then I'll be like, oh, that was a high thought. I don't know. It just puts me in a weird place.
All right. Here's one of my favorite high thoughts.
Please.
Okay. So why do we park in a driveway and drive in a parkway? You ever think of that?
It has crossed my mind as a conundrum.
This is exactly why we need you in Congress, man, because there's conundrums out there like this.
Well, and I will just say we need to legalize cannabis on a federal level. I mean, I'll get that out there. It's ridiculous that we still have this prohibition and this drug war. So even though it's not my thing per se, but it needs to be legalized.
One of the biggest issues that I see, and you guys, please, if you have a question, it's probably going to be smarter than mine. One of the biggest issues that I know about cannabis in Florida is first off, the medical program is very expensive. And second, right, there's no home grow. You have no ability to like actually grow at home. Like, Have you like taken a moment to dive into like the cannabis industry here and to see like what's screwed up about it?
I'll be honest, I'm not as educated, so I'm part of coming on the show is hoping you guys can kind of tell me more about what's going on.
So probably the biggest gripe is that we can't grow at home. And probably the biggest thing that our chapter has been going for is employee protections.
Mm-hmm.
So like if you have a medical marijuana card, and Gary, who has put so much work into getting these bills across and getting legislators to like look at these bills. But employee protection is a big one. So we want people with medical marijuana cards to not be in fear of losing their job over it. And expungements. So people who have been arrested for marijuana in the past need to have that forgiven. And they're still living in this society as criminals, right? I think that's probably like the three biggest things as the movement and this chapter is concerned. You guys have anything you want to add?
Yeah, one other thing that's important is organ transplants. People shouldn't be kicked off the organ transplant list because they choose to use medical marijuana as a first option rather than a terminal option. And I think that's something that can be addressed both federally and at the state level.
Well, I think if I donate my lungs to science and the person that gets them, they'd get high.
This is true.
That's a big plus. Am I coming through better?
I that sentence was pretty good.
Same room as the router. I mean,
It could be the router.
Sometimes you have to be in the room where I've heard that somewhere before.
No, I don't think it's
still
the effort is
working.
Appreciated though.
Yeah, we definitely want you here.
I blame AT&T.
I blame
That's always
them
a
for
safe
everything
bet
as well.
Yeah.
So how's it looking for your campaign for Congress? What do you need to get in there?
Well, I really appreciate that. Well, so we're about to have this primary on Tuesday, and so things are looking really good for us. We've gotten the endorsement of the State Progressive Caucus, the State Disability Caucus, the Progressive Change Campaign Committee. They're a national organization that supports progressive candidates. We've raised more money than anyone else in this race combined. That being said, we're taking nothing for granted. We're, working our ass off to, talk to voters, sending them texts, knocking on their doors, giving them calls. And I think, just y'all having me on here and getting to talk about my campaign, checking out eddiegeller.com, watch the jingle again. I hear it gets stuck in people's head. It got stuck in my head when we were first writing it. So hopefully it gets stuck in y'all's head too.
Well,
now,
very cool.
Now, Eddie, I was actually the campaign manager for the candidate who ran in 2016 in Florida's 15th district. So I know there's been some redistricting. Kind of share with the folks what neighborhoods, what areas that Florida's 15th congressional district covers.
Yeah, that's a great question. So this is kind of East Hillsborough, Tampa suburbs. So I'm in Brandon, which is of course in the district. We also have Lutz and Temple Terrace. And then it also goes into Polk County, splits Lakeland in half and up into Pasco a bit with Wesley Chapel and Zephyr Hills. But the important thing I think to point out about this new district, it's an open seat, so there's no incumbent there. And it's a district that Andrew Gillum would have only lost by 1 point back in the last midterms. So it is very flippable. It's very winnable. And I think we need a candidate who's going to excite folks, who's going to get people jazzed to come out and vote. Maybe they have a jingle. But I think that's where we're headed. I mean, we need new voices. We need different kind of folks to run. And that's why I've not been scared to talk about my comedy background, because hell, I think like this is what we need. I bless the lawyers. It can't all just be lawyers who are running.
So I actually I have a bachelor's in philosophy, and the one of the things going through the philosophy department when I was like going through it was like the two biggest careers that you can do getting a philosophy degree is go on to law school or become a stand-up comedian. So I think honestly. And you hear this a lot, like you hear about guys like Carlin who are seriously like they're philosophers.
Oh yeah,
absolutely. They know
absolutely.
what they're talking about. They're into logic. They see what's screwed up in society so that they can make fun of it. You
Right.
know what I mean? So like I think it's actually like it actually fits pretty well to put a stand-up comedian.
Well,
in
I think that's what comedy
politics.
does is you have to see the truth in situations and then point it out, whether it's your own personal life or the world around you. Is you point out the bullshit and you call it out, you know?
And I have to ask this District 15.
Yep.
So Keno, was it the same district when you were working it, or
More or
it
less.
was, it
I
was
mean,
redistricted, right?
yeah, I mean, redistricting happens after they do the census, but yeah, more or less, it actually had stretched at one point all the way to Lake County,
Mhm.
Polk County, and then of course, yeah, Eastern Hillsborough, Lutz, Brandon, even all the way close to Plant City and such. So, but all in all, just looking at where this district has been, it's a swing district, like Eddie points out. It's one where there is a lot of conservative folks out in the suburbs, but there's also a lot of liberal-minded folks who live, in Eastern Hillsborough County. Eastern Hillsborough has tons of apartments and working-class folks
Yep.
who can't afford to live downtown Tampa, who can't afford the gentrification
Mhm.
that has happened in the urban corridor. So, Eddie's going to be representing a lot of working-class folks up there in D.C. In this district, and I think it's important that we do have a person like yourself who's just down to earth. We've had previous representatives in this thing that have been hardcore Republicans running the 15th district that have told the party line, that have helped put Trump in power. At one point, there was a representative who wanted to ban internet porn representing this district. So, all in all, when it comes to freedom, the Republicans who have previously sat in this seat have not been the most pro-loving freedom folks. And so having someone like Eddie willing to step in, I think would be a breath of fresh air.
Well, they love to tout freedom as a buzzword, but when it comes down to it, that's not what they care about. They want the government to dictate what you can do and what you can't do based on their moral prescriptions, but it's not actually freedom.
We were talking about this on the last episode of the rotation, where it's like I really see like conservatives being the most like restrictive people out there, telling people what they can't, like the very concept of don't say gay,
Yeah.
right? That seems to be like a very like very restrictive.
Oh,
right?
absolutely.
Yeah, like I don't know. I get pissed off. when I talk
No,
about it.
it's all
Yeah, I mean,
right.
it's
Like,
just like people saying, "You're free to think like me."
Exactly.
well, like I mean, I mentioned it on our last show. My father was a political prisoner in Cuba, and he was a prisoner in Cuba because he said something that was anti-Castro. And now the idea of yeah, okay, maybe in America we can say whatever we want about DeSantis. DeSantis is an asshat and whatever. Trump sucks. But like, don't say gay. Like, you're gonna put me in jail for saying the word gay. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is communism.
Yeah.
It's totalitarianism. I don't know.
And it's attacking those of the who are most vulnerable in society. It's the playbook, the same playbook over and over, and it's so disgusting. We need to be. I want to go to Congress to help represent and protect folks who have the least amount of representation. I mean, that's what excites me about being a representation, as opposed to Republicans who want to beat them up, to get more votes, more money, and more enthusiasm. It's disgusting.
All right, guys, we got about a minute and a half left on the Better Know Your Candidate. So, Eddie, just go ahead, take a look inside the camera. Let me make us the big guys here. Take a look inside of the camera. Tell people how they can support you, where they can find you. And yeah, just do your thing, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah. Head to eddiegeller.com. Check us out. Chip in a few bucks if that's something you can do. We'd love to hear from you. The primary election is next Tuesday. Not sure when this is all being released, but yeah, Tuesday, August 23rd. We'd love to have your support. And then when we get to the general election, it's a purple district. So this is going to be a tough fight. And so whether, you're able to, support monetarily or make calls, knock doors, anything you can do to help. And, like you said, I want to be someone who is down to earth and bring that sort of working class voice and that voice of actual freedom to Congress.
And guys, how can you join Suncoast Normal?
Well, you can go to suncoastnormal.org. You can click and become a member. And, as we move into election season, folks are going to have questions. And so Normal actually has an election central. You can see where cannabis is actually on the ballot across the different states, where there might be local initiatives moving forward, whether it's in regards to dispensary bans or taxes or anything that has to do with cannabis. Go to Normal's election central, check it out. And then also, we have a voting guide called Smoke the Vote. And so, as we go into our upcoming show this Sunday, we'll be giving some recommendations in the primaries. But for the general election, you definitely want to check out the Smoke the Vote voting guide. Eddie will definitely make sure you get that questionnaire once you get through this primary, and make sure that you get that right grade from us. And if you need to get registered to vote, if you need to know anything about the upcoming elections here in 2022, definitely go to Smoke the Vote at National Normal's website.
And let's just take a moment to explain this questionnaire thing. So when the primaries end, right, we send every candidate, everybody that wins the primaries, a questionnaire on their stance of cannabis. And this gentleman over here to your right, the box on your right, I guess it is, Mr. Kano works very hard on that. So yes, Suncoast Normal provides voters the ability to see how each candidate feels about cannabis. And it's very important if you're a candidate to freaking fill that out, because if you're a candidate and you're for cannabis legalization and you just ignore us, we're going to put that you're against us.
Well, y'all have my contact info, so I expect that questionnaire ASAP after the 23rd.
We need you to fill that out.
I will be filling that out.
Anything else? Anybody else want to say anything? This was a lovely
one quick question, if you can hear me okay.
Yeah.
The endorsement from the Disability Caucus.
Yeah.
What in your plan? Just out of curiosity, because I happen to have a wife who I happen to love very much.
Can you repeat it, maybe?
Yeah, you broke up a little bit. Sorry.
Much, yeah. Well, I'm interested in knowing what in your platform has to do with people with disabilities.
Well, I think we gotta fight discrimination. There's a lot of discrimination against the disability community. And I think part of it is just saying the word disability and not being afraid of it. I myself have a hidden disability, so I count myself as part of the community. But I think, whether it comes from accessibility, home health care, transportation, there's a lot more we can do for the disability community. And so it's a very proud endorsement that I have, and a very proud to call myself part of that community.
Okay. Well, guys, we'll be on the rotation on Sunday. We love you all, and we'll see you